So I started searching for courses and programs that I could quickly get my ICF accreditation. And I started with the course, the I4 Neuroleader course that led me to the I4 Neuroleader assessment practitioner. And that combined gave me everything that I needed. I started becoming embedded in the process and seeing how this could be a game changer in my portfolio of work that I do with my clients. And the more I got entrenched with it, the more I started coming up with ideas as to which clients I'm going to approach. When I came to the retreat, the ideas got even more magnified and my brain was just exploding. Go through the process. The process is there. You don't need to go and find another book. You just need to do what is there already. Start with the course.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the I4 Practitioners channel. We're here today with myself and Dineshrie, but we're crossing the boundaries between Brisbane and Johannesburg. And we're doing this so that you can learn from the experience of us as fellow practitioners and hear some of the ideas that have worked for us so that you can go away with more confidence with some ideas that might help you too. So, Dineshrie, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Angela. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Can I just start by asking you to share with folks what it is you do and how you work with leaders?
Sure. I think I need to say straight off the bat, I'm a qualified chartered accountant, and I had been in business just over working for corporates, that is, for 6.5 years before I decided to start my own business, which I have been doing now for 16 going on to 17 years this year. I can't believe where the time has gone. And I help business leaders and professionals turn their speaking anxiety into being more confident and strategic communicators. I help people through all spheres of leadership. And whether you are stepping into a new role or others are taking their speaking skills to the new heights, or those that have simply lost their voice along the way, I help them find the commonality of their voice and how do you communicate and how do you bring that message into the boardrooms, into customers, into selling their products or their services or their ideas. And it's really about finding that purpose in speaking again.
Important work. I remember talking to you about that when we were last together in person. I could talk about it for ages, but we're here today to talk about the I4 Neuroleader and how that integrates into the work that you do with your clients. But before I go into that, can I just ask you to tell us about how you went about doing all the learning? It's a really rich amount of content that we have to get through. What was your approach?
I came across the I4 methodology quite by accident. Backstory here, it was lockdown, and due to financial constraints during the time, for lots of reasons that everyone was experiencing, I lost the opportunity to redo my CCEs that's needed to keep my ICF accreditation up to date. And as a result of that, I was in the lapse stage of my ICF accreditation. I remember it was around May 2024, I got a email from ICF saying, you need to go and get your accreditation up to date, and you got 3 months to do so. So basically, I had 3 months to do all this accreditation that I was normally expected to do in 3 years. So I started searching for courses and programs that I could quickly get my ICF accreditation. And because of the lapse and the normal points that I needed something as a minimum of 60 points to get through. So I started going through courses. What can I do quickly to get my ICF accreditation? And that's really how I came across the About My Brain institution and saw their course as well as their online courses combined could give me everything that I needed to do in a short space of time. And so I started with the course, the I4 Neuroleader course that led me to the I4 Neuroleader assessment practitioner, and then eventually I went to Bali. And that combined gave me everything that I needed. It started off as a rush because I had to get everything done, especially that course. But eventually I started becoming embedded in the process and seeing how this could be a game changer in my portfolio of work that I do with my clients. And the more I got entrenched with it, the more I started coming up with ideas as to which clients I'm going to approach. How am I going to incorporate this program with my speaking program and offer a much more holistic program, not just on speaking, but on leadership? And when I came to the retreat, the ideas got even more magnified. And my brain was just exploding with all these
It was
ways
like
in
that, wasn't it?
implemented. And so I came back with lots more ideas, but that's how it started.
So it came from a very different place, but actually, once you got immersed into it and used to the content, you found that it sparked new ideas for how you could take complementary assets to your clients to help with their overall leadership, speaking, confidence, all those sorts of things.
Absolutely. Like I said, the course I did in a rush. I had a very serious deadline on my plate, and I had to solve that problem and that box I was in. I had to get my ICF accreditation. So the course I did in a rush. Later on, after I did retreat, I came back to the course and I did that properly. And I think that was also a beautiful process for me because I saw it differently. I saw things and I learn things that I kind of flossed over the first time. But it was really the assessment certification, specifically chapter 17 on neurogames and chapter 9 on role playing. And they got a group of people and they role playing how to actually do some of the games and the interactions on the deep dive sessions to roll this out with clients. That's where I literally got goosebump moments. I remember watching that, pausing it, getting out my journal, writing down some notes, going back to the video and thinking, wow, I can see myself playing these games and I can see myself making this much more of a fun interaction with my delegates so that I can actually start implementing this. But it was really that chapter that
Mm.
was light bulbs, almost like fireworks in my head, that I could see this and see myself delivering this.
It sounds like that was quite key for you, not only getting excited about the content, but actually seeing it in practice in your mind.
Yeah, it really stopped becoming about collecting CCE points at that stage. Because at that stage, I had most of the points. It was just topping up. And because the pressure was off, the CCE as such, I started seeing the benefit of the actual methodology and the program and executing that rather than just a tick box exercise. I need these points. And I saw this methodology as something really valuable that I wanted to share not just with my clients, but to integrate into my business.
Slightly different experience, which I know I've shared with you before, Dineshrie. Mine came out of a different kind of necessity. My clients were asking me, do you do 360s? And I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with 360s, but I had heard back in 2019 about the I4. And then through a series of happenstance accidents, I got to enroll in the Bali event kind of at the last minute. But that was a genesis of me really getting into the content and things going from there. So I think there's a little bit of synchronicity in these, but once you get in and the sparks start flying or the fireworks, as you said, it opens up whole new doors. It's more than, for me, it's more than another tool and another curriculum. It's really enriching personally as well as my clients see. But anyway, back to you. Tell us about the first sale that you made. And I guess for the people listening to us, they are in a similar position. They might have completed or be completing the study, and they might be thinking about how they're either going to incorporate this or sell it to client. How did you approach that?
I would imagine that anyone who's taking up the iPhone Neuroleader methodology has clientele that's already in place. And as a result of that, you know your client, you know the business, you know their strategy, you know where they're going for, you know their business cycles. You know that their business cycle or the year end starts in March or maybe June. And every business cycle then has a training calendar to go with it. Every business cycle has certain no-go months. We can't do training in XYZ months because it's our budget period or it's our interim results or we are busy with sales periods. So you need to know your clients firstly. You need to understand what is their strategy, where is their leadership going, what kind of training is important for them right now. And once you understand that, as well as their cycles of training, you are able to position the I4 Neuroleader methodology or any kind of training really, whether you're doing speaking or whether you're doing any kind of coaching, in alignment with that strategy. So for me, understanding my clients was pivotal. And the timing of when I approached them was also pivotal. I didn't approach them just when I started learning this because that was too soon. I was still learning and embedding this knowledge within myself. And I needed to get confident with this because I think that's where a lot of people can make the mistake. If you approach clients too soon, whilst you still learning this yourself, integrating this into your own life, and you haven't really become a role model for this yourself, how are you going to go and approach clients? Because if you approach clients too soon, they're going to start asking you questions on the methodology and the process that you're still figuring out. So that's my first advice. Know your client and embed this yourself. So I took 5, 6 months before I approached my first client. I didn't make the mistake of going through this process and then picking up the phone and going to my client and say, oh, wait, I got this new thing. I have to try this. It's a client that I have been working with for years, and I think the trust is there. And this is now relationship dynamics of how to approach clients. you you need to have those clients that trust you, that you have a good relationship with, that when you give them new piece of information, they are ready for it. And also, I know what I've done with them in the past, and I know how to now position this as something different. It's not going to be something that we've done before. And personally, how I position new product services, whether it's speaking, whether it's leadership, I need to understand KPIs. I need to understand what's your new KPI as leadership development manager, as a business segment head, as a HR practitioner, as a learning specialist. Because if I can understand how this is important in your world and how this might be important for the leadership teams, then it's easy to position anything. It's just you take a set of slides and you reorder the positioning of the statements. Instead of talking about this first, you talk about that last. Because you understand what are your values and what's your strategy alignment and how to position things differently. So I think you really need to spend a lot of more time sussing things out. If you haven't got an established client base like I'm talking to right now that helped me, then I would say if you're positioning this with a new client, then you spend a little bit more time with those upfront meetings, coffee chats. Don't position things too soon. Do some trial runs, some pilot runs, perhaps understand that client better. Don't just speak to the leadership team, speak to some of the other managers to understand where they are at. What are their issues? Because you might be speaking to one person.
Pain point.
Exactly. And they are into their own pain points. But if you talk to a few other individuals in the team, they talk to something different. So take your time to propose. And then when you do take your time, then you need to bring all those voices into the proposal and not just the managers. And then we must do a big launch because that's what I insisted on. We need to have a big launch. Bring all these peeps into a room, call all the team individuals, bring all the staff that you said you want to train, and you make it fun. You talk about what the program is and you make it fun. I mean, I had makeup artists, I had cartoonists, I had people blowing up balloons, and I had LED spin in there. It's
I wish I was
fun.
there.
It was fun.
It does sound great.
It was a lot of fun. As well as it was a serious message. So, the senior leaders in the team, they spoke about the vision for not just the program, but for the business unit and how this program was going to be part of the bigger vision and definitely the people internally to the organization. So you need all this buy-in before you implement. But that buy-in happens long before launch. You need to be talking to people. You need to be understanding groups, you need to be understanding dynamics, and you also need to have a sense yourself that you got this right. You're not presenting something that's pie in the sky and it's not actually aligned to what they're looking for as a business. So as much as you're excited to implement this, you have to have a sense of authority and posture yourself that you understand this organization, you understand their business units, you understand their timelines, their budgets, and it's something that you can do.
So that trust, that experience, the knowledge that you had, combined with knowing about their business cycles and their pain points, helped you to package the I4 up as part of a solution in a way that, the label was there, but it was more about the solution that it's providing to the people in the organization.
It's a secret weapon too, if you're ready for that. I don't know.
Tell us if you've planted the seed. We have to know now.
Goodness, I might as well whip this out here. So I'm an author of a book. It's called Ignition. I teach people how to speak in public. I teach people how to sell, how to propose, how to put a message together and structure a talk, whether it's 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 20 minutes. And in that time, there's a formula to selling. There's a formula to putting your PowerPoint slides together. So yes, there's a technical aspects, there's a relationship aspects, there's a business aspects, but it's what you do in that 7 minutes. So when they gave me a 10-minute slot, which ended up being 20 minutes because of Q&A, but they gave me a 10-minute slot to talk about this new program. I had 10 minutes to influence, to persuade, to sell an idea, to inspire, to motivate, to uplift. And if you don't get that content right in 10 minutes, game over. I'm sorry, it is. It's game over. You can have the best of planning, you can have the best of preparation, but if your delivery is flawed, if your energy is down, if you don't have the right content, and you're not positioning it in a way like what do you say in the first 1 minute? How do you build that up into a logical sequence? How do you bring in elements in there that's going to hook the attention? And finally, ending off with, how am I going to land this big plane that I'm now selling to you? And really, it's the backbone of what I've been teaching for just over 16 years, which is how do you sell to an audience? How do you get on a stage? How do you present? How do you inspire? But that was my secret weapon. And honestly, kind of do this very remote control right now.
Yeah.
And it's only when
Yeah.
people ask me to dissect why I was able to do this. And it actually just comes down to a formula that I have built over time, taught over years, and it's just embedded in me. So it's just a matter of putting slides together. So I'll tell you what I did here. So on the certification course, there's a set of slides that is there. It helps you to present and sell. So what I did in the actual delivery of it, once I brought in the understanding of the client, the understanding of the business, I rejigged that into my selling speech formula. And that really just lands. So
So you use the slides
that's
from the
all the
training to
time.
help you position as part of the solution.
Absolutely. There's a formula to selling.
Yeah. Speaking of slides, tell us how you used the Big Eight Corn Ferry content to influence your clients. This is one of the slides in the training.
Absolutely. So one of the ways in which you influence an audience is that you need hard facts, data, statistics, references. Because leaders and organizations and managers are just overwhelmed with so many different methodologies already. Whether it's Myers-Briggs, whether it's Enneagram. I mean, list it. There's a big list that we can come up with. So when you are presenting it's another thing. That's usually what comes to managers' heads. It's another thing. So you want to have a reference point as to why this is different. And I really loved that Corn Ferry framework because
Mm-hmm.
it's
The Big
research,
Eight.
it's all businesses, it's organizations, and it had the language in there that managers are looking for. So language like planning, creativity, strategic agility, it is building effective teams. And I don't want to go into all 8 now. I mean, it's there
Sure.
in
Yeah.
content, but it had the language that spoke to a senior executive. As we know with the brain, it cut through the conscious side of the brain, which is the analytical part, goes to the unconscious directly, and it kind of seeds itself into that mind and helping you to influence. So I really love that slide, and I definitely brought that into my conversations. And I saw that it
Yeah.
landed
Me
because
too.
after then, it was easier to incorporate how I4 is linked and aligned to that research and what a
Yes.
future leader is meant to be.
I love that slide too. And let me just share how I use it.
Mm.
Because in the room, you've almost always got people who are in a training role or they're a coach or they're leaders and they're very familiar with Korn Ferry or the Big Eight. There's very rarely anyone who hasn't heard of it. And there are also people who have probably been through it, been through the assessment themselves. And so there's a familiarity. Like you said, they're using the client, they're using language that the client is already familiar with. What I love though, and how I use this, is to say to the clients, well, you're familiar with this model. Let me show you how the I4 aligns with this model, and let me show you how it is better. I don't use the word better, but let me show you how this adds more value. The so what, now what, as I say. So what? I've got these results. What do I do with it? And I think for me, the I4 actually helps answer that now what, whereas other tools just don't give people that. And I feel that that's a very powerful message. It's very true, and it feels really enabling. And once you get people, engaging with the cards or looking at their report, it's so accessible. And that's what I love. You can be an exec, you can be on a shop floor. It's language anyone can understand. And so it actually goes further than the Korn Ferry in that it's far more accessible, as well as giving people, well, I've got these results. What can I do with it? So I get very excited using that slide too. Tell us now about what you learned from doing I4 debriefs. So debriefing people on the 360. So what are some of the key takeaways? Probably just your top 2 or 3 insights.
I learned, number one, don't take emails for granted. As much as the email that delegates get, which tells them very detailed how to send out their raters, how to do their self-assessment, the timelines, what not to do. You don't take that for granted. You must still set up a meeting and take them through it. Just say all of that again. Whatever's in the email, put your own slides together if you need to. Just say it again, because even after saying it, you'll still get a few people that do the wrong things. So you don't take that for granted. Number 2, have the timeline that there will be some people that will align to the timeline and get things done within 4 weeks or whatever it is. But then there are those that don't. So when you set that timeline to get that done, when you're putting that schedule of training together, add some buffer time, because I found on average with all the groups that I have done, and I've now done 4 groups over the last few months, on average it takes between 4 to 6 weeks. You are going to get 1 or 2 individuals. One of their managers are on leave, their key stakeholders are not there, and they need those.
Yeah.
Add the
So
buffer
more
time.
time rather than less. Okay. So a bit of hand holding, giving more time. What else?
3, you need to also be very unhanded, very on the ball. You need to be in the panels at the back end to check if people are doing the right things. Some people, they don't send out the number of people. They think they sent out the number of emails and they click send and it was okay, but actually the emails did not go. So you as the administrator need to constantly be checking on the side, especially in that first week, that actually all the emails have went out, that you're actually confirming with the individuals that their raters have received it, because sometimes they send out the emails, but the raters don't get it. So there's a lot of admin in the beginning that you have to be constantly checking in. And sometimes people, they don't say one of the raters don't get the emails, then they need to cross change or swap out a rater, and all that admin changes. So once they get their reports, then you're fine. Then don't set up a debrief session as a workshop unless you have done individual coaching first. I've done 4 groups and I've tested this out. And I've realized that for the 3 groups where I did the individual coaching first, in other words, well, I'm calling it individual coaching as debrief, where I've done the debrief first, it was immense value for me versus if I skipped that and I went straight into debrief as the group. So let's talk about
Right.
why you must do debriefs first. A lot of people get the report and they have a lot of biases or perspectives, or they see all the reds in the report and then they don't want to go through it. So if you go into the debrief workshop, they're going in with a lens, negative, not very aligned, not very committed, and all they're doing in the debrief session is focusing on their reds. But if you spend time in individual coaching up front, then you're able to explain it to the individual. You're able to see the
Mm.
trend. You're able to unpack the report and make them more positive about the report and see it not just as people being nasty to you, but actually let's look at the trends and what this is saying for you. And so in the individual coaching session, you have the opportunity to switch their mindset to something much more positive so that when they do come for the debrief session as a group, now they are looking at, okay, I've been through the report, you helped me with this. Now help me get to a next level. What do I need to do to change this? And the other thing that is useful for me is as I do debrief sessions, say there's 20 in a group, I keep a journal and I make my own notes individually. I make notes as to what are their strengths for the individual, what are their blind spots, and where are their developmental areas. And then I do that individually. So before I come to the debrief session with everyone in a group, I make a general note for myself. Generally, what's coming up? Where are their blind spots as a group? Where are their developmental areas? Because then that helps me guide a conversation, guides the dialogue, guides the kind of games that I do, the interaction. It also makes me a bit more softer in my tone, perhaps, as to how I deliver certain content on certain areas, knowing that it's a sensitive area or it's a much needed area to develop as individuals, because I can see everyone is struggling with this. So,
So what you're
the,
describing, sorry, Dinesh, what you're describing is really tailored.
yeah, very
And the
tailored.
value of having those one-to-one conversations first gets the person in the right frame of mind, but it also helps you to really tailor when you get them in the room together so that it has more meaning for the individuals. I have a slightly different angle that's not an alternative to your approach, but I'm thinking more about my experience with the debriefs. I find that people, when they come into it, they're a bit curious. What is this tool? But as soon as they see the insights, they get very curious. And if I compare it to other tools that I've used, where there's the subjective commentary, people just get totally consumed by what people might have said about them, where they're weak or where they're lacking. And it just derails the whole conversation. So I've found the conversations that I've had about the I4 debriefs have been far more insightful and constructive. People get into the insights faster. They still go through that, oh my gosh, there's a lot of red. But as you walk them through the insights, and when they feel the sense of agency and the safety from not having all that commentary that they might be familiar with other tools, it actually provides a far richer conversation. I've had people who get to actionable outcomes quicker than with other tools, and I think that's important, an important differentiator. And when you bring in the cards and the QR codes, they can see straight away ideas that they might not have ordinarily come up with. And so I think there's that creativity element that's adding new ideas that I might not have in my arsenal or I might not have thought about. So I really like how you focused on the mechanics of doing this with a group and how to set it up for success. But I guess I wanted to add in what I see in people's reactions in the sessions. And
I
there's
think
so
it's
many
so
directions you can
important.
take this afterwards.
Absolutely. I think it's so important that a practitioner test a model for themselves. Different cultures around the world, different people, different. We've got a lot of diversity in our country, so too much. So bringing people into a group and now having to be so vulnerable to actually uh, my report in a public space. I find individual coaching session, individual debriefs, it helps with that. So my advice to a practitioner, I'm glad that you brought that up, Angela, is to try both. Try the both techniques. Go into a group debrief, then go into individual debrief, or try the other approach. Try the individual debriefs and then go into a group debrief. And you'll find a methodology that works. And maybe for you, you find that a particular one is much better. But if you don't try it, you'll never know. At least now between the both of us, we both have the history and the experience that it works. But you need to find something that works you.
And I will say from my personal experience of using other tools, for me, this felt much like safer ground. And I was far more interested in the insights. And I found that taking feedback from all areas of my life gave me better perspective on who I am. It took away the sense of, well, some of the sort of spiky judgment that you can feel in a competitive workplace. And so I could really see and feel quite a difference in this tool versus other tools. And I think any tool that gives you insight is worth doing. but there were some really notable differences with this particular tool. Let me ask you, Desiree, how did the assessment certification enable you to introduce neuroscience concepts into the work you do with clients?
I just have to say, I've been a fan and a long-standing researcher myself into how the brain works. I mean, if you ask me what are my favorite movies to watch, it's Lucy and Limitless. And both those movies are all about basically being able to take some drugs or pill or something that unlocks unlimited human capacity. And if I go back to my bookshelf, I've been reading books about unlimited power and mind power and training your brain. And it was just such a beautiful, it never coincidence, right? It was meant to be, but call it coincidence, call it the universe working for me, that I found that this course met not only my CCE credits, but my thirst for knowing how to untap human potential. I don't know if we'll get to the 20% that's talked about in the movie Lucy as an example, but we can get very close enough if you can get to all the strategies that's been taught in this course and this program. So it really did feed my long-standing thirst. And that's why I love this. So it just brought in all the science elements that I've been seeking for years.
I feel the same way. It can be a bit of I say to people, I geek out on this stuff. I'm not an expert, but I geek out on this stuff. For me, it helped me manage a perceived need. So people that I come across in learning and development or in corporates, they have a thirst for this information, but they can't necessarily put words to it. And they might be seeing stuff in social media or in headlines or in other media that they're consuming, but they're not getting it delivered in such a robust, scientific, but accessible way in their learning programs or in their coaching and development programs. So I get very excited when I think about all of the work that's gone into the material that we get through this learning program, because we can take it straight away to our clients, and wherever they are, we've got something that we can use. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
I think also, if I look back at all my delegates and their feedback as to why they love this, is because it brings together all these disparate concepts that we know we should be doing: eating well, getting enough sleep, being creative, the importance of daydreaming, creativity. Why is it so important to collaborate? Why is it so important to be agile? And it brings all these different, disparate skills, behaviors, science, data, and it molds it into a structure. And the structure becomes doable. And it's something that you can teach, you can learn yourself, you can do yourself. And the strategies that's tapped onto it is useful. And because it's useful and now backed by data, it's easy for people to see themselves doing it. And that's what makes it different.
Yeah, I agree. Let me ask you, for the people listening who are going through their learning or who've completed their learning and are at the beginning of taking this work to their clients, what advice do you have for them? What would be your top 2 tips?
Go through the process. The process is there. You don't need to go and find another book. You just need to do what is there already. Start with the course. Do the course for yourself. Immerse yourself. Hopefully, you don't have any big deadlines like I did and cram like 7 months of stuff in 3 weeks. But do the course. Do it for yourself. Take 6 months out for yourself. Do the course. Then go do the certification session, because that gives you everything you need to know that you will have as the backbone to being a practitioner. Make notes. When you get ideas as you watch the course, make notes. Think, where can I use this? How can I embed this? Which client can I approach first? And you need to then test it. Then the third element is go for the retreats. Then when you go for the retreats, you're now interacting with Ralmi, Sylvia, other practitioners who have used it. You get now a global perspective on it. And that perspective shapes you, molds you, inspires you. You come back, don't take too long, implement. The longer you take to implement, the more harder it's going to be. So as soon as you come back from the retreats or wherever, just implement quickly. And then last but not least, consider becoming the certified brain-friendly certification trainer, because that really cemented everything for me. Now teaching other people to become trainers themselves, it made all this other content easier, because now I'm teaching other people to become certified trainers, it further embeds the knowledge in me and it becomes easier for me to go back to train groups in corporates and in business because now I'm training other people to do it. So I'm saying that the ecosystem exists already. You just have to go and take the journey. Start with the course.
Thank you so much. You've been so generous with your experience, your lessons, your learning. I hope people listening to this are going to take at least one, maybe more, thing away that they can use and do something with that will make their I4 Neuroleader journey more accessible. They'll feel a connection between you and I, um, and have as much fun as we do with the program.
It has been
Thank
an
you.
absolute pleasure sharing this. Thank you for the opportunity. And if anything, it is my hope that today inspires you to be more and step into the shoes that you have been ignoring. And just know that you have everything in front of you and within. You just need to get started.
Point to end on. Thanks, Dineshrie.